Okay, so who do I to aspire to be as a teacher? So we talked about a couple questions. I'm going to answer them each directly today. So we're going to start off with my teaching philosophy. I made this infographic all the way back in AEE 100, whenever we first started talking about teaching philosophies. So I kind of made this. I kind of broke it into 5 big aspects of what it takes, in my opinion, to be a great teacher. So you have to care, you have to shape your students, prepare your students, respect your students, and ultimately, as teachers, teach your students. So my kind of philosophy is that education is about relationships as much as it is about the content that you're teaching. If I go into a classroom someday and my students feel comfortable enough, respect me enough to come up to me and tell me about how they're feeling, tell me about their home life, tell me about what's going on in their personal life at school, then I feel like I've done a good job as a teacher. I think if I just come in every day like a robot and teach them animal science, plant science, and ag mechanics and walk away and that's all they know, then I don't think I've really done my job as an educator. I feel like if a student comes up to me, they say, hey man, I'm having some problems at home. Can we talk? It's my place to say, yeah, sure, and talk. And it's not my place to say, well, no, we got to get in. We got a lot of stuff to do today. We got a lot of animal science to go over. So maybe we'll just talk about that later. I don't think that's in my position as an educator to be like that. So this year in lab, we talked about our posters that we made. So we had classroom procedures, expectations, and consequences. I'm going to take a minute to go over each one here. So I have these printed out on pieces of paper. They're very small, so you can't really see them. So I've got them real big on the slide. So my class procedures, I'm going to use these whenever I go to Juniata Valley and probably tweak them a little bit whenever I get my own classroom, but this is going to be what I'm going to go with to start. So obviously these procedures are going to be pretty much just like in every other class these students are going to have, come in, sit down, get working on your bell ringer, have all your stuff. Be engaged is a big one that I am a stickler on. If I have to sit there and talk at these kids for 43 minutes and they don't say anything back or they just stand there and look at me, I'm going to lose my mind. So I need them to be engaged. We need to have a conversation. I don't know. I have a theory that I might not have to make them raise their hands to talk in my class, but we're going to kind of experiment with that the first week or two to see if they can be adults about it or see if it's just going to be a bunch of chatter. But I want them to finish strong. Don't pack up till we're finished. If there's 5 minutes left of class, there's 5 minutes left that we can learn something. Not sit there while I'm trying to talk and there's 20 kids scrambling their stuff to their backpacks to try and get to lunch a couple minutes early. Expectations, it's pretty much the same thing that they're going to be expected to do in every other class. Respectful, responsible, positive, involved, and be ready to learn. I'll respect you as long as you respect me. If you lose that respect, you can gain it back, but it's going to take you a minute. Be responsible. I don't want you to forget something every single day. If you forget a pencil, big whoop, I'll give you a pencil. If you forget a pencil every single day for the first 4 weeks of class, we're going to have a conversation. Same thing with positive. Don't be coming into my class every day down in the dumps and just ho-hum, life is terrible. You're in high school. It gets much worse. Just relax. Be involved, be ready to learn. You got to be involved in my class. I don't want you to come in there, like I said before, and just sit down and look at me with a blank stare on your face for 40 minutes. Be ready to learn, be ready to engage. Consequences, I don't really like consequences. I hate to punish kids, but when they need it, I'll give it to them. But I'm a big baseball guy, so I figured I'll give them 3 strikes. You're going to get a verbal warning, and then you're going to get a second warning that's going to have you come talk to me after class one-on-one and be like, hey, something's got to change, man. You got 2 strikes. 3rd strike, you're going to go to the office. It's not what I want to do, but at the end of the day, if we want to get what we want to get done, we have to be focused and we have to not have distractions. So we were also tasked with creating our ideal ag program for this presentation. So my ideal program would be kind of an ag mechanics, animal science based class. Ideally, we would have 2 teachers so you could do 2 SIP codes. But I would like to be able to teach both sides of ag mech and animal science if we could do it. I'd start everybody out with a solid intro to ag class, just basic fundamentals, plant, animal, soil science, all that good stuff, FFA knowledge, and then have students move into either an ag mechanics line or an animal science line. As you can see, we would have some welding, metal fabrication, small gas engine carpentry, finish it out with electric plumbing, and do a little bit of AutoCAD because I think that would be good for some ag mech students to learn. On the animal science side, we would just kind of get more advanced as we go down, start off with the easy stuff, anatomy, classification, breeds, get into some repro, some genetics, some nutrition, and finish it out with some advanced reproduction strategies, probably get some kids AI certified. That would be the ultimate goal. So my facility design, this year in ag mechanics, we did some SketchUp, which was interesting because I had never used SketchUp and it was very difficult. The worst part was rotating things that you don't want them to rotate this way, you want them to rotate that way, but it wants to rotate just spinning around. So I spent like most of my time figuring out how to get these fences to rotate the right way that I wanted them to. So I'm not going to take complete credit. I did not fully design that. I kind of took some stuff and added in some other stuff where I liked it. So my ideal facility for that class is we would have an animal science pathway. So naturally, you're going to need some animal science facilities. So ideally, we would have a barn type structure with a couple stalls. You could keep some cows, some sheep, some goats in there if you wanted to. And then behind it, you would have a sort of pasture to where you could do some grazing studies, maybe mapping out different areas where you want to graze goats on it for a week and then graze cattle on it for a week and see how things would differ there. So it's kind of just an all-around animal science facility that I designed. The second thing we did was make a $15 project for Dr. Ewing's ag mech class. So this is what I made. This cost me 12 bucks. I went to Rural King. I got 4 horseshoes for $10, and I found 6 nails laying around at home. So those were free. Realistically, they're not free, but you can buy like 100 nails for a couple bucks. So work with me. So what I basically did was just took the MIG welder at home and tacked these together like that, tacked a couple nails onto them, and I made a key holder. So you take that, stick it up on your wall, hang your keys on it, hang your coats on it if you want to. This is my rough prototype. Obviously, it would be a little bit better than that if you had kids that were in a ag mech class for 3 years. They're going to be pros. But that's my $15 project that we worked on this year. So in my ideal ag program, we're going to obviously have to do SAEs for every student. You're going to have to get them involved in FFA. So for SAE, obviously with an animal science and a plants or animal science and an ag mech kind of pathway in there, we're going to be able to do a little bit of entrepreneurship, ownership type of deal with some fair animals. Kids, if they're showing their steers, they're showing their goats every year at the fair, they don't have somewhere to put them. They could keep them at our little barn facility there. Of course, I'm going to make them take care of them. I'm not going to feed your goat every day and feed your steer every day just for you to come in there and walk it once a week and think you're going to go to the fair with it. I also had an idea of doing sort of a school-based SAE with a couple kids if we had a nice shop to do our ag mechanics work in, having a sort of small gas engines shop where local community members could bring in, you got a push mower that doesn't work, a leaf blower that doesn't work. You say, hey, can you fix this? We'll charge them just for the parts that it costs to replace it. So that way your students can kind of get hands-on real-world expertise with working diagnostics with small gas engines. Some guy brings it in and says, hey, it doesn't work. You have to actually go through the process of diagnosing it, why it doesn't work, what can we do to fix it, cost repair of, hey, it's going to cost us $150 in parts just to fix this $130 leaf blower. Is it worth it? No. So that's going to be partly of what they're learning doing that kind of stuff there. And then obviously into FFA, we have that nice facility. We keep some animals there. We can do livestock evaluation, meats evaluation, all sorts of stuff like that. We can do an ag mechanics CDE. We can even do some dairy eval if we have some dairy cattle, dairy goats in there. So there's a lot of CDE teams that we could have firsthand knowledge and work with just from the things that we were able to get from our own facilities here in this ideal ag program. So marketing is another big thing. You have to recruit your program, and I don't want to throw any like programs under the bus, but I feel like this is something that's really underutilized by a lot of ag programs out there. They're not actively searching through the student body at their school to try and recruit more kids to ag. They're just kind of hoping like, oh, that kid, his brother was in ag, so he'll probably be in ag, or that kid's grandpa was a dairy farmer, so he's probably going to get involved. But what about those kids that haven't grown up with farming? They don't know what FFA is about. They don't know what ag is about. Those kids should have just as easy as of an opportunity to get into the ag program as anybody else. So I feel like if you had some really easy stuff, you don't have to go over the moon with recruitment. You make a social media post, you say you have the Juniata Valley FFA. That's a Facebook group. It's the Blue Juniata FFA, regardless. You put a post on every week, every 2 weeks, just like, hey, this is what's going on in our ag program this week. This is what the events we have coming up. This is how you can get involved. Do some school-wide events. You obviously during your National FFA week, you're doing a bunch of stuff, but that's 1 week out of the year. You can be doing more events different days of the year to try and at least get the word out. There's some kids that'll go their whole life through school. They won't even know that they have an ag program. So if you can just get the word out to those kids and they say, hey, that looks like fun. I wonder what that's all about. If you can just get them wondering and get them interested, you have a much better chance of actually recruiting more students into your ag program. Now, obviously, we want to build our ag programs. We want to get more students involved. That helps us get a little bit more money. That helps us do more things. It helps us give those students a better experience. Community integration. You can't have an ag program without doing stuff for your community. It just doesn't work that way. So county fairs, your LAC, OAC, that sort of committee stuff, those guys are helping you, so you have to help them. They scratch your back, you scratch theirs. It's pretty self-explanatory. So obviously, we're working 12 months out of the year. We don't stop at the beginning of June whenever everybody graduates or when everybody goes on summer break and we say, all right, guys, we'll see you in the fall. Because if you have those animal facilities, you can't exactly leave a cow there for 3 months by itself in the summertime and not go back and feed it. So obviously, you're going to be doing work through the summer. You're going to be feeding the animals at your facilities. You're going to be doing stuff with your kids at the county fair. You hosted their animals throughout the school year at your animal facility. Do you not just want to just send them off and say good luck at the fair? Do you want to actually go and watch and see all the hard work that you've been doing, all the hard work that your students have been doing actually pay off at the fair? Same thing with your committees, your local advisory committee and your occupational advisory committee. Those are the guys that are helping you get your ag program better. Those guys are saying, hey, this is what's going on in industry right now in welding. This is what's going on in industry right now in soil science. How about we slightly change this to help suit your kids so that way when they graduate from your program, they already have this knowledge. They go into industry and they say, well, this kind of new thing that come out, I'm not sure if you know about it. And they say, oh, yeah, we did that in ag class. It helps them get a lot better jobs. It helps them get hired a lot easier whenever they have the latest industry knowledge. And also, I believe it was in 413, we did a community outreach unit where we designed an actual unit of instruction for communities. So there was a couple examples where you would do like a small gas engines unit, bring in people from the community that maybe, hey, we don't know a whole lot about small gas engines. We want to learn more about small gas engines. That way, if my leaf blower quits, I don't have to pay $200 to have somebody look at it and tell me that it just has a bad spark plug. So you want to keep your community learning. The same thing with us whenever we go through all this professional development, whenever we get hired, we keep learning, you keep learning. That's not just a teacher thing. That can be everybody. If you want to just keep learning whenever you're out in the community, we'll be there to help you with that. So, phase 2, what opportunities have I engaged in to become a better teacher? Well, I'm going to tell you. So, this year and last year a little bit, this identity wheel on the left is from when we had Maya Sullivan come into our 412 class one day, and we talked about multicultural learning. And this was something that I had never seen before, but it was kind of really interesting to like go through and do this. I think we did this in AEE 100 whenever I was there with Dr. Ewing a couple of years ago. But doing it then as a first semester student at Penn State main campus versus doing it pretty much my last semester here, there was a lot of stuff that changed. I mean, obviously, there's like your age, that obviously changed. Your geographic affiliation probably hasn't changed. I was here then, I'm still here now. If I would do one of those in 6 months, it's going to be obviously different because I'm not going to be here anymore. Your education levels changed. We're pretty much going to be bachelor's degree recipients in another 6 months or so. But there's a lot of other things on here that change, and it's kind of interesting to see how you grow and change throughout just a really small span of time. So we kind of talked about that. We talked about how with multicultural learners, that maybe their wheel is completely 100% different than ours. Maybe their wheel is only half different than ours. But the big idea is that just because it's different than ours doesn't mean that we have to make them feel different than ours. So it doesn't take a lot to change up your unit plans, your lesson plans to help other students feel involved. The big idea that we talked about with Maya over the couple days was that just because they seem the same as you doesn't mean they are the same as you. Just because they seem different than you doesn't mean they're any different than you. And it doesn't mean that they should or shouldn't get a different or worse education experience. So one thing that I did, we talked about changing up lesson plans to better suit multicultural learners. I took my first lesson plan on basic animal terminology. It was talking about cattle terminology, talking about bull, steer, heifer, cow. Maybe something super simple that I did, instead of putting on there, okay, there's an Angus bull, there's an Angus steer, there's an Angus cow, there's a Hereford heifer. Maybe put in there a couple breeds from Asia, put in a couple breeds from South Africa. Something that we don't have here, but maybe something that some of your students are more familiar with. Something that small and insignificant to us might make the world of difference to that student. And then this picture on the right was our poster that we made in INTAG 100N with Dr. Habashi. We talked about the influence of grain mold in Ghana. So it was kind of really cool. I won't bore you with all the details of like how mold gets into grain in Ghana, but it was really interesting to be able to like learn about other countries and how how they struggle agriculturally versus us. We don't really have the big issue because we've got great big grain dryers that we just throw corn into if it's harvested a little wet. But they have a large problem with moldy grain. So we're going to talk about a couple classes I took that were really a big deal. Obviously, 350 was a big one because it's ag mechanics, and I love ag mechanics. And if you've ever talked to me for more than 35 seconds, you know that I love ag mechanics. So that one was really cool. That's where we built that. And that one was kind of more of how to teach ag mechanics as opposed to learning the actual trades. It's like, okay, well, here's how you weld, but how do you teach somebody how to weld? So that was really cool. EdThep 115 was my first ever college class. I walked in there to Penn State Altoona and I was like, what in the world is this? We talked about stuff that I had never even heard before. I rolled my eyes at most of it, but in the end of the day, that was my very first college experience, and I didn't know how good I had it. CAS 100, I took online during the summer. That was my speech class, and that's kind of where we started to like public speaking. And I didn't really like public speaking, but now I'm standing up here at you guys yapping for 20 minutes, realizing I'm running out of time. So doing that was even weirder because it was online and we had to sit a computer in front of us and record ourselves giving a speech and like post it. So it wasn't really public speaking. It was like recording yourself talking and posting it and then having other people watch it and giving like, hi, Rick, I really enjoyed listening to your speech. I liked this. I didn't like this. But it was an interesting experience talking to a computer without having that immediate feedback. I like the immediate feedback of like saying something funny and seeing like two people crack a smile and everybody else just look at you. But that was like, there's no feedback at all. It's just blank screen, myself staring there, staring at this computer. It was really bad. ANSI 100 was super cool. I took it online too. That was kind of where you start getting your basic fundamental. We didn't do a whole lot of animal science in high school. So that was kind of where you got, okay, here's everything about goats. Here's everything about cows in 15 weeks. It was great. I really enjoyed it. So we had to go get some certifications. We did a bunch of stuff over the last like 4 years of college, so I'm sure I'm missing stuff, but the most recent ones I did was we got beef quality assurance in high school. I redid it this semester because I didn't remember anything that we did. So I just got recently beef quality assurance certified and I got ag literacy certified. So now everything farm to fork, it's covered. Everything beef cows, it's covered. I love beef cows. So we did a bunch of that good stuff. I did a bunch of experiences. Most of these, I guess all of these happened this year. One of them happened this year and last year. But there was a lot of experiences just in this last 15 weeks for professional development, for just figuring out how to do Penn State Ag. So National Teach Ag Day, we did Plant Yourself an Ag Day this September and last September. It was really cool because last September we got to do the junior class at the time, got to kind of just herd everybody around from station to station, and you got to see everything individually. And this year, we were in charge of the workshop. So you only got your workshop, but you got to do it 4 or 5 times throughout the day. So it was really cool to see like, okay, I've got an hour to teach legumes to a bunch of high school kids who either do not care or do not know about what a legume is. So you had to like, a legume is this. Who can give me an example of a legume? And you got one kids that don't say anything like that. And then, so we did a bunch of that stuff. That was cool. That was a good time. We paired up for that. We went to National Convention this year. I got to do that with some high school kids. I didn't get to go with my cooperating program because they weren't going this year. So I went with my home high school. That was a lot of fun. Just being, it's the first time, it was my first time at National Convention, but it's like your first time on an FFA trip as a chaperone. So it's not running around with your buddies doing a bunch of stuff. It's like making sure you're watching the guys as they're running around with their buddies doing a bunch of dumb stuff that I used to do when I was a kid, but now I'm the one that has to like keep them from hurting themselves. That was a good time. We did Ag Squared. We did that over here in Toff Trees for 2 days. That was a bunch of fun. It was more fun than I thought it was going to be, but it was really good professional development. I'm going to take a lot of that stuff into my classroom. We did notebooks. They had a notebook set up where you have your daily lesson, you have your challenge question, you put everything in your notebook. I'm definitely going to do that at Juniata Valley. And then actually, what is today? Tuesday. We got back Friday from NAAE. That was a good time down there in Nashville. We did a bunch of professional development, like all day, every day. It was a great time. We learned some good stuff. I got stopped at TSA on the way back through. They thought I was carrying drugs because we brought back sausage mix from one of the professional development things that we did. It's a bunch of seasoning for, and it comes in a bag. It's just, it looks like a bag of like, you know. So the guy's like, is this your bag? I'm like, yeah. And he's like pulling stuff out. He's like, you're good. Thought they were going to cuff me right there in Nashville. But we had a good time. A lot of awards coming out from different teachers at PA. Dr. Foster got an award. Everybody got awards. It was a great time. It was a lot every day, but it was a great time. I also had a bunch of experiences here at Penn State. I worked at the beef barn for the last couple of years while I was here. I've got to go through the whole thing of seeing the 2024 calves clear up to the 2025 calves. I figured I better use this laser pointer before I run out of time. So we did a whole bunch of this stuff. I got to drive tractors every day. I got to do calving from calf to butcher. We got to do bulls the whole way up through and sell them. We got to do rotational grazing. I don't want to say anything to hurt any professor's feelings, but I feel like I learned more on the beef barn than I did in any of my classes. So that was by far my most favorite experience throughout my entire Penn State career. Okay, phase three, we're going to wrap it up quick. How am I prepared to maximize student teaching? Well, I already told you we're going to be at Juniata Valley High School. It's pretty rural. You got about 70-ish kids in the ag program there, so it's kind of familiar territory, but with a whole new twist. So here is our ag room. These bottom two pictures, these top two pictures are the shop area. It looks dirty. It looks like an ag shop to me. That's what I care about. My master calendar is on here. I figured you guys didn't really want to see like all of that stuff, so I didn't really paste it on there, but I have the calendar linked in there. This is kind of what I'll be teaching. So this is every week. We have 15 weeks of student teaching. These are my 5-6 class periods that I'm going to be teaching, and those are kind of the units per week that I'm going to be teaching. So we're going to start off kind of easy with a class or two, and then a couple of weeks in, we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to have a full class load for what looks to be about 6 or 7 weeks. And then we're going to kind of take it back down a little bit and end it out nice and easy. But I like that I get a nice plethora of classes to teach. I get a little bit of dairy, a little bit of beef. I get to do a bunch of different natural resource stuff that I haven't got to do before. Some FFA knowledge, plant science, animal science. The bees unit I'm really excited about because I don't have any sort of bee experience, so that'll be cool. They have a whole beehive there that we get to mess with. That'll be fun. Here is every single unit plan, and inside the folders are the lesson plans. I figured you guys didn't exactly want to see 25 lesson plans and 19 unit plans up there in little pictures, so we'll just put you there. If you have any questions, come talk to me afterward. I'll show you all of it. But that's kind of everything that I've got. I've got it sorted out into each unit. I've got the unit labeled for what period it is, what class it is, all that good stuff. It was a nightmare to do it all very messy and then kind of put it all together. But it was a lot nicer once I put it into that fancy calendar back here, because then you just link everything and it's all there. It was great. So my focus strengths, this is what I feel that I'm bringing into Juniata Valley that I can help grow the program. Obviously, shocker, I like ag mechanics. I do a lot of ag mechanics. My dad's a mechanic for the last 30 years, so ever since I was a little kid, we've been turning wrenches and fixing junk, and we don't take stuff to the garage. We take it down below and we pull motors out and fix internal water pumps that takes 3 days and put head gaskets on, fold it in half and have a bunch of oil spill out all over the ground and do it all over again, but it's a good time. Livestock, I mentioned that I've been working over at the beef barn for the last year and a half, so I've been doing a lot of cattle work, moving cows, some pretty hot stuff over there, some Angus Simmental stuff that would sooner run you down than look at you, but we take a big stick out there with you and you'll be great. I feel like I have a good bit of real world experience. I worked on my uncle's dairy farm. I've helped my other uncle on the beef farm. My grandfather and my uncle had beef cows from the time when I was a boy. So I feel like I've been around a lot of agricultural stuff my whole life, and I have some of that real world experience that's probably not on the OSHA certified side of agriculture, but more on the you do what you got to get stuff done. So I feel like that's a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be bringing to Juniata Valley, and I feel like a lot of those kids are going to come from similar backgrounds. Some of them are going to come from completely different backgrounds, and I feel like I can kind of bridge that gap to bring everybody onto the same page. So this is the last thing, my personal professional growth goals. So these are kind of what I want to do in 15 weeks with Juniata Valley. I want to do some professional development sessions. I'm already in the process of signing up with Raylene while we're at ACES to do some PD with Mr. Seaman back there. So we'll be doing that in February. We're going to probably end up doing the same thing at SLLC and some other conferences that we're going to go to. So I really, really want to keep doing that professional development stuff, doing some workshops, getting as much knowledge as I can get during those 15 weeks. I definitely want to improve my lesson pacing and my time management, because if you haven't noticed, I really like to talk. So I have 43 minutes to tell everything about beef cows. If I get sidetracked on a 5-minute story about what I did at the beef barn, we're not going to get done. Work-life balance, big one. I got to figure out how I'm going to do everything I need to do at school and everything I need to do at home, clearing out a house that me and my fiance are supposed to be moving into, getting married next year, while doing all my ag stuff. And I also just want to build my professional confidence. I hate wearing suits. I hate doing all the professional stuff, but I need to get better at it so that way whenever I go into the whole, hey, we want you to be our new ag teacher interview, that I can actually like look professional while I'm doing it and not look like a dressed up farm kid. So that's kind of what I just want to get over with. That's everything I got. I was a little bit late, but I reckon a minute or two will be all right.
We'll move into our questions now. Ask for questions from the audience. If you're on Zoom, if you don't mind putting that in the chat. There's somebody in the audience that would like to start with a first question.
Mr. Torrey.
What class do you like? Interested in spring, like somebody else on the what class kind of like.
I think my food science class, it's my first, or it's my period 3 class. It's my first class of the day. That's the one we're starting off with a 3-week bees and pollination unit. So I think that one, just food science in general, I don't have a lot of knowledge in, but they have a whole little kitchen area that we can actually do some not experiments, but some labs in. So I think doing a lot of stuff with the bees and actually learning about that while doing food science, and then we work into a bunch of dairy units after that. So I think that's kind of the one I'm most excited to teach. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, by the way. I'm reflecting on that last part of your presentation. And so I'd like you to help respond to this. Say I'm an administrator and I'm sitting here looking to hire you as my agriculture teacher. I want you to talk to me about the liability concerns I may have if your base of experience in informing as a public instructor of non-OSHA compliant practices. And what liability and risk might come back on my school if I do hire you of not having that team of confidence for risk management.
Yeah. So actually, I am certified. I have my OSHA 10 in construction certification. We got that in high school, so I have that. But I think more of what I learned growing up on the farm of you do what you do to get it done, and it might not be safe right now, is definitely not what I'm going to bring into the program, because I've seen actually both ways of how to do something the correct way and how to do it the farmer way. So I think that I will be able even better than somebody who maybe doesn't have that firsthand farm experience of not doing something by the book, because I've seen it done by the book, not by the book, and I feel like I would have a 2 steps ahead thought process of saying, okay, well, we're going to do this, but if we do this, that might lead to this, which is going to be unsafe, that maybe somebody who doesn't have that previous experience on a farm might not have.
I'd like for you to reflect on the modeling and experience and working with analysis. When students need to use in that practice.
Yeah. So in 311 this year, Dr. Curry has me recite Kolb's experience model just about every day. So I think that the teacher has a big part of that, but I also think there's definitely steps where the teacher needs to back off and let the students actually work their way through that. So the first part of the model is they have their experience. Students have to start off with a concrete experience. That can be with or without the teacher. If you're taking them to national convention, obviously the teacher is going to be part of that experience. Maybe the students are having their own experience in the classroom while you're teaching. You're not really giving them that experience firsthand, but because of what you're saying, they're being able to experience something. The next part of it is reflecting, which is the big part of what we've talked about all semester, is you're not learning about what you did on an experience if you're not reflecting on that experience. And I think that's something where the teacher can really help facilitate that without holding your hand throughout the entire process of allowing students, giving them the tools to reflect without babying them along the reflection process, saying, okay, we're going to do some reflection on our Nashville trip that we just went through on NAAE. How are we going to do that? You get 3 options. You can write a paper about it, you can do a presentation about it, you can do a video reflection about it. So where you're giving the students their own opportunity to reflect how they need to reflect, but you're facilitating that in a way to where they're able to do it on their own with a little bit of guidance from you. After that, we do a little bit of conceptualization. I think that's another thing this teacher is probably going to be a little bit of a part of, figuring all that stuff out, and then you go right back to your experience again, whether the teacher's there or not.
So we have a question in the chat. It's from Maya. Maya is our grad student, our major here. And she first wants to say that you crack her up.
Thanks.
And then her question is, safety by the book is important. What's one strategy you will use to create a safe classroom for student belonging?
Yeah. So safety as in, not as in like OSHA safety, but safety for students, which I think you could kind of go into the deep philosophy of safety, physical safety, but we don't have time for that. But we're going to go, what I'm interested in or concerned, not concerned, but more involved in is making sure my classroom is a safe space for students, regardless of whatever demographic, whatever. Those students, I want them to know that they can come to me with anything they need. That was kind of what I talked about in my philosophy. I could have gone on for like 10 more minutes on that whole thing. But if a student comes up to me, and I want them to be safe enough in my classroom to where they can ask me about anything. If they can't go to anybody else, I want them to be able to come to me, because I know that I had teachers like that in high school that I could ask them anything and tell them anything, and they were there. That's kind of what I want to be for those students. If that answers your question.
Well, let's say it answers my.
Okay.
I'm going to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Because you were saying that you want to be that teacher for those students. You have a lot of traditional ag experience. Kind of carry yourself in a traditional ag manner, right? We know that the agricultural workforce, we need fresh blood in there, right? We need new people in there. How are you going to recruit those kids that wouldn't typically walk through your door and get them in there, and so they see just what an awesome person and teacher that you're going to be?
Yeah, so I think that was kind of more, in my marketing type thing of, we want to have like a nice little Facebook page and Instagram page, just so that way we can get the fun activities out there to the student population. It kind of depends on like what school I end up in. Maybe I know there's some schools that'll have like TVs in the hallway that are kind of broadcasting some kind of stuff that goes on in the school. Maybe there's some other schools that don't have that sort of stuff. So I think it kind of depends, but really just getting as much of the program out to as many people. If they just see it, I think that that's a little bit of a success in itself. Just having some student who's maybe more business oriented or more like engineering oriented, that maybe doesn't have any clue about ag or doesn't care about ag, if they can just see a post about, hey, we went to National Convention and we got to do all this stuff and we got to tour the Cummins factory, and maybe that just little thing piques the interest of a student that says, oh, well, I would like to go tour the Cummins factory. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Maybe just that little thing is enough to spark an interest in the back of their head to say, well, maybe I ought to go try this ag thing, or at least go and talk to somebody that's in the ag program. Because as Dr. Curry would like to tell us, friends don't lie to their friends about if you're a sucky ag teacher or not. Yeah, Mr. Rose.
We're both livestock guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of hands-on experiences, whether it's judging, working with big farms. How do you hope to correlate the hands-on with the instructional experience in the classroom?
That's a good question. I think ideally you have that animal facility and whatnot. You can have the hands-on opportunities, the hands-on experiences either during or after the instruction in the classroom. You go into your classroom, you talk about, okay, we're going to talk about the anatomy of a beef cow. You're going to talk about hooks, pins, all that good stuff. Take them out to the facility then. You're going to say, okay, so see how this beef cow is a little bit wider footed than this one. See how this dairy cow has a worse udder than the other one. You actually get that hands-on experience after you teach the fundamental theory, kind of like what we did in ag mechanics this year. You get the theory, you go out and do the thing. I feel like that is a really good experiential process for learning for these students.
To piggyback, there was a very strong, heavy flavor of animal science and animal learning laboratories and facilities, and been blessed to see hundreds of those across the country. And so I'm curious, I want you to talk to me about 2 or 3 best practices, Rick, that would allow, if I had an animal learning laboratory, animal health and husbandry, student learning outcomes, and positive community relations. What are 2 to 3 best practices if we are engaging with hosting animals, including students' projects, and having an animal learning facility that we can ensure we have safe and healthy animals, that learning occurs, and that we have positive community relations?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is obviously the safety and the health of the animals. You don't want to have sick animals in your facility. But I would also challenge you that maybe having a sick animal every once in a while wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Obviously, you don't want to have animals get sick and die in your.
2 to 3 practices that you're going to do as a teacher to achieve those 3 goals.
Right.
What are some management practices?
Yeah, so obviously we want to keep clean facilities. We don't want a bunch of stuff laying around all over the place, whether that's waste from an animal, wasted food from the animal, or just rakes and shovels laying around everywhere that could get stepped on. So we want to keep a really clean facility, keep it cleaned out weekly, and keep everything in its assigned spot so there's no chance of accidents happening for the animals. I think that with the community aspect of it is you could have a community unit where you bring in community members and do a little bit of just animal husbandry, taking care of animal lesson with them. Here's how you take basic care of a beef cow, and probably not with some big livestock animal, but with like a goat or a sheep, you could just talk about, well, here's just basic care for animals like this. If you were interested in maybe getting a goat at your house, keeping it in a pen, this is kind of the fundamentals you need to know. This is kind of what you don't want to do. This is what you do want to do, kind of stuff like that, if that answers your question.
I'm gonna, it's okay, I'd like to follow one more. I'm gonna dovetail, because I think it's related into your classroom management beginning. You used the example of pencil. If you don't have a pencil for one day, no big deal, but if it's several days, then we have a problem. And I feel like, and your expectations are that you left some subjectivity, some shades of gray. And I'm curious of how do we set boundaries to help students and community members meet our expectations when we're delivering ag education in a very public setting representing that school?
Yeah, I think it has to be, excuse me, it has to be almost, you don't want to use like case by case basis because you don't want to have that connotation of, well, I know this student a little bit better, so if he forgets a pencil, it's no biggie. This student and I don't get along so well. If they forget a pencil, I'm going to tear them a new one. You don't want to have that happen, but I feel like if you know those students a little bit, you know maybe this student had a basketball game last night, they were back late, they don't have a pencil. That's a little bit different than if this student hasn't had a pencil in a week and you know that they aren't involved in any after school activities. They're just kind of going home playing Xbox all night. So I think it's kind of again, you don't want to have it to be like a favoritism game or anything like that, but you want to be able to know your students well enough that you can kind of have that background knowledge and there's that mutual respect there of like, okay, I know this kid is going to tell me the truth of like, hey, I forgot a pencil. That's all it is. Versus this kid who, you know, is a little bit of a storyteller.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Rick, when it's all said and done, after student teaching, what do you hope your students, your colleagues, your peers, parents, administrators say about you?
So for the students, I hope that they're just bawling their eyes out whenever I leave at the end of April. I hope they're so sad to see me go because I hope that I'm able to build that kind of connection with them just over a short 15 weeks of like, there's a lot of mutual respect and mutual care between myself and the students to where like, obviously they're happy to get Miss Russell back in the classroom, but at the same time, they're going to be sad to see me leave the classroom. And I think the same thing could kind of be said for like the cohort members of like, they're happy to see us all get back together afterwards. We're going to share stories about what went well, what didn't go well through our whole teaching experience. And then whenever we graduate and kind of branch out, obviously we'll still be in a little bit of contact here and there, but I kind of want my Penn State legacy to kind of be, Rick was kind of a guy that maybe didn't do everything the most like professional, politically correct by the letter of the law way, but he cared and he wanted what was best for everybody.
That's all our time for questions. Can you help us in thanking Rick for his time? We continue the Y chromosome afternoon. Jeremy is up next. No,
What,
Mitch is up next at 1 or 2 o'clock, sorry, followed by Jeremy at 3. We'll see you in 15 minutes. We have to retire to freshmen from 214.
Nice job. Job, Rick.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.